My wife bled my bank account dry while I lay unconscious in a hospital bed. I deserved it after everything I did for you, the message read. My only reply was a single emoji, a thumbs up. The next day, discharged but not defeated, I didn't go home. My name is Cameron Doyle, 45 years etched onto a life spent 22 years gripping a truck wheel. Not glamorous, but it paid the bills, afforded Dana a life she never truly appreciated. For weeks, a vice tightened around my chest. Stress, I told myself, just long hauls and bad roadside coffee. But then, the denial shattered. Somewhere outside Omaha, the pain became a screaming inferno, forcing me to the shoulder. I dialed 911 myself. A helicopter blade whirred me away to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. It wasn't a panic attack. My heart was giving up. I remember the doctor's face, a fleeting image before the blackness swallowed me whole. "We're losing him," she'd said. Not exactly the bedside manner you hope for before oblivion. 2 days later, I woke to a symphony of beeping machines and tubes snaking from my arm, a stent now a permanent resident in my chest. The nurse said I'd died twice on the table. Said I was lucky. Luck felt like a cruel joke when I checked my phone. One message, from Dana, 15 years. That's what we were, husband and wife. No kids, just a mortgage in Sioux Falls and a string of silent dinners snatched between my halls. The message held a screenshot of our joint account balance, 0.000. Below it, her chilling justification. I deserved it after everything I did for you. 61,438.72, my safety net, the truck's maintenance fund, my whisper of a retirement, vanished. Rage should have consumed me. Instead, a bone-deep weariness settled in, the kind sleep couldn't touch. I sent her a thumbs-up emoji, nothing more. When the doctor came, he spoke of rest, of avoiding stress, of 6 weeks minimum off the road. He asked if someone would pick me up tomorrow. Yes, I lied. That night I called Jeff, my brother. Across town, our lives had diverged into months of silence, not from anger, just the chasm of different paths. Need a favor, I rasped. Name it, he replied, no hesitation. Need a place to crash for a few days, and you can't tell Dana. A beat of silence. She doesn't know you're alive? Oh, she knows, I said, the words laced with a bitter truth. She just doesn't know I'm not coming home. I met Dana at a gas station outside Cheyenne. A flat tire, and I was the knight in shining armor with a lug wrench. Back then, she looked at me like I'd performed a miracle just by knowing how to use a jack. Funny how that works. What impresses at first later becomes an expectation. 6 months later, we were married. Fast, but not reckless. I was 30. She was 27. Old enough to know, young enough to believe. She never loved my 3 weeks gone, 1 week home routine, but the money was good, and she loved what it could buy. Every night, from whatever state I found myself in, I'd call. Hours-long conversations bled into shorter check-ins, 5 minutes of news, then just a confirmation. The last couple of years, it was mostly texts. Made it to Nashville, all good. Looking back, the signs were there. The fading questions about my return, the new friends I never met, the solo outings. But I trusted her. Marriage is trust, right? Jeff set me up in his spare room. A construction foreman, grounded by the job site, twice divorced. He knew a thing or two about people letting you down. You need to eat, he said. Hunger was a foreign concept. My mind replayed the house I'd bought, the refinance I'd done 3 months ago when rates dipped. Dana was too busy for the signing, so I handled it alone. Put it solely in my name, my credit score the better of the two. She hadn't even asked to see the papers. Then there was the medical power of attorney, signed last year after my buddy Tim's stroke left his girlfriend powerless to make decisions. It rattled me. Jeff's daughter, Megan, my sharp-witted law student niece, helped me navigate the paperwork, ensuring everything was airtight. Dana knows you're here? Jeff asked, sliding a sandwich my way. No, I said. and she won't for a while. She took everything? A nod. What are you going to do? I bit into the sandwich, flavorless. Rest, doctor's orders. But sleep was a battlefield that night. Staring at the ceiling, the moments of Dana's detachment flickered like faulty neon signs. The furtive glances at her phone under the table, the sudden password changes, the hushed transfers between accounts for better interest rates. I'd been blind, but the scales had fallen. On my third day at Jeff's, a text from Harold, our neighbor, buzzed my phone. Haven't seen you around, everything okay? Dana's got some guy over, thought you should know. I stared at the message, a cold dread settling in. No reply. Later that day, Jeff drove me to the bank, not our usual branch, where Dana and I were a familiar duo, but the downtown headquarters. I asked to speak to a fraud specialist. Showed her the screenshot, explained the hospital stay, the unconsciousness, the withdrawals without my knowledge or consent. The woman across the desk maintained a professional mask, but pity, maybe a flicker of anger on my behalf, danced in her eyes. Mr. Doyle, we can initiate a fraud investigation, but given it's a joint account, and your wife has equal access, it could be challenging. I understand, I cut in, but I still want to try. A nod, and her fingers danced across the keyboard. We'll need your hospital records, confirming your stay, especially documentation of periods of unconsciousness or incapacitation. No problem. And you should be aware, if it becomes criminal, the police will be involved. I met her gaze. I understand. On the way back to Jeff's, we stopped for gas. I stayed in the car while he filled the tank. Through the windshield, I watched a father buy ice cream for his 2 kids at the convenience store. Life, ordinary and oblivious, flowed around me. Want anything? Jeff asked. A shake of my head. Back at Jeff's, I made 3 calls. First, to dispatch, requesting an extended medical leave. Second, to the credit union, where I held a small business account for side jobs. Third, to Jeff's friend, a lawyer. Need to know where I stand, I explained, with the house, the accounts, everything. Blake, the lawyer, agreed to meet the next day. I hung up, opened my laptop, navigated to accounts Dana didn't know about, checked the status of investments she'd never inquired about, not from secrecy, but from her disinterest in the mundane details of finance. As I did, another message from Dana pinged. Where are you? Your truck's not at the yard? They said you came by? No reply. Cameron, this isn't funny. You can't just disappear. We need to talk. I closed the laptop. Jeff peered in from the kitchen. She trying to reach you? Yeah. Gonna answer? I shut the laptop. Not yet. That night, I walked through Jeff's neighborhood. A clear night, stars visible even through the city glow. For the first time since the hospital, the weight on my chest eased, physically at least. During that walk, a realization dawned. The anger was gone. Even the hurt felt strangely muted. I was just done. And with that came a clarity. Dana hadn't just taken my money, she'd inadvertently handed me my freedom. A week after discharge, I finally went home. Midday, knowing Dana would be at her office job. Key in the lock, I stepped inside, the familiar space feeling alien, like returning from just another hall. The air hung heavy with a different scent, cologne, not mine. Empty wine bottles cluttered the trash. 2 glasses stood forlornly in the dishwasher. I gathered my clothes, important documents, and the small safe from the closet holding my birth certificate and passport. Leaving, I noticed the wedding photo frame, usually perched on the hallway table, was gone. Back at Jeff's, I met Blake, the lawyer. We sat at the kitchen table, papers spread between us like a battlefield map. The house situation is interesting, he said, scanning the refinance documents. Since you refinanced solely in your name, coupled with the medical power of attorney and your recent heart attack, you have a strong case for sole ownership. What about the money she took? Blake frowned. Trickier. Joint accounts usually imply joint ownership. But he tapped a finger on the bank statements. The fact that she drained the account while you were medically incapacitated could be argued as financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, especially given it was primarily your income. A nod. And if I want a divorce? South Dakota is an equitable distribution state. Given the circumstances, I think we can negotiate a favorable settlement for you. He gathered the papers. Don't contact her. Don't reply if she texts. Everything goes through me. The next day, Dana appeared at Jeff's house. I was alone, Jeff at work. I heard her car pull up but didn't peek through the blinds. The doorbell rang 3 times, then the pounding started. I know you're in there, Cameron. Your truck's down the street. Her voice, muffled by the door. You can't just hide. We need to talk. I sat motionless in the living room, a child playing hide-and-seek with a ghost. Eventually, the banging stopped. I thought she'd left until my phone vibrated. I'm sorry about the money. I was angry. You've been distant for months. I thought you were seeing someone else. I found out about refinancing the house and panicked. We can work this out. Please talk to me. The first time she'd accused me of infidelity. Projection, maybe. I flipped the phone face down, unanswered. The following day, Blake called with news. Dana's lawyered up. She's hired Patricia Wells. Patricia Wells, a shark in the divorce pool, known for taking everything: houses, retirement accounts, future earnings. What does that mean for us? I asked. It means she's not playing games. Wells is already alleging your disappearance after the hospitalization is desertion. She's painting you as unstable, saying you vanished without a word and are refusing to communicate. A deep breath. So what now? Now, we get ahead of them. I've filed for an emergency hearing regarding the withdrawn funds. Judge Harmon is presiding. He doesn't take kindly to exploiting medical situations for personal gain. After the call, I stared at the wall for a long time, then called Megan, my niece. I needed her help with something specific. That night, I drove past our house. Dana's car sat in the driveway beside a black Audi I didn't recognize. I circled the block and returned to Jeff's. A text from an unknown number pinged. This is Patricia Wells. I represent Dana Doyle. Any further surveillance of my client will be documented as harassment. All communication must go through official legal channels. They were watching me. I was watching them. The gloves were off. 2 weeks after my initial meeting with Blake, we were in court, the emergency hearing regarding the withdrawn funds. Dana was there with Patricia Wells, both in severe suits. I wore the only tie I owned, the one I kept in the truck for unexpected roadside funerals. Judge Harmon, an elderly man with white hair and reading glasses perched on his nose, studied the documents impassively, his gaze flicking between Dana, then me. Ms. Wells, he finally said, his voice measured. Your client withdrew all funds from the joint accounts while Mr. Doyle was hospitalized with a life-threatening heart attack. Is that correct? Wells stood. Your Honor, my client had every right to access those joint funds. Furthermore, Mr. Doyle recently refinanced their marital home solely in his name without Mrs. Doyle's knowledge, which we contend was a prior act of financial deception. The judge removed his glasses. I'm not asking about the house, counsel. I'm asking about the timing of the withdrawals. Was your client aware that Mr. Doyle was in the hospital when she took the money? Dana whispered something to Wells. Wells cleared her throat. Yes, Your Honor, but my client was under extreme emotional distress. Believing her marriage was dissolving, she acted to protect herself financially. The judge put his glasses back on. While a person is unconscious due to a heart attack, seems an unlikely moment for them to be dissolving a marriage. He shuffled the papers. I am ordering a freeze on the funds pending further review. Neither party is to access these monies until their ownership can be determined as part of the divorce settlement. Not a complete victory, but it stopped Dana's spending spree. As we left the courtroom, Dana tried to approach me. Wells held her back, a hand firm on her arm, but not before Dana hissed, Cameron, please, you don't understand. I walked past, not looking at her. Outside, Blake looked satisfied. That's just the opening act. Now comes discovery. The stage where all the secrets are dragged into the harsh glare of the spotlight. A week later, Blake called me to his office. A file sat waiting when I arrived. "We found something," he said, sliding it across the desk. Inside, a bank statement from an account I didn't recognize. Dana's name was on it. Balance, $127,340.56. "Where did this come from?" I asked. "Your niece found it. Megan's internship at the downtown credit union gave her some insights. This account was opened 18 months ago. Regular deposits, always just under $10,000, just below the reporting threshold. Classic structuring." "There's more," Blake continued. "The deposit dates coincide with your long hauls. When you were out of state, the money went in." I leaned back. She'd been planning this for a year and a half. Blake shook his head. "I don't think she was planning on leaving you, Cameron. I think she was preparing in case you left her." "Why would I have left her? I was working myself into the ground to provide for us." Then Blake handed me another sheet, a credit card statement with a hotel charge in Minneapolis. Date, 3 months prior. I was in Seattle that week. Name on the reservation, Harold Jensen. Harold, our neighbor, the one who texted me about the guy at our house. Blake's face was grim. "We think Harold's been involved with Dana for a while. He was creating a false trail to make you suspicious while they were together. The betrayal wasn't just Dana's. It was orchestrated, planned. Harold, playing the concerned neighbor while sleeping with my wife. Dana, draining our accounts while I fought for my life." I stood up. "What's our next move?" For the first time that day, Blake smiled. "That's up to you. But if I were you, I'd make them both regret they ever thought they could pull this off." The next month was spent at Jeff's, my body slowly mending while Blake built our case. The strategy was clear. Document everything, gather proof of Dana and Harold's affair, establish the financial deception. Megan was invaluable. Her credit union work provided insights into financial maneuvers we wouldn't have otherwise seen. Nothing illegal, just connecting dots that were in plain sight. "The account has another user," she told me one evening. "Not a joint owner, but an authorized user." "Harold?" I guessed. A nod. "And one more thing. They've started transferring money, smaller amounts, to different accounts. They know we're onto them." I stared out the window. "They're liquidating assets, preparing to run." That night I called Blake. "We need to move faster." "Agreed, but carefully. If we show our hand too soon, they'll disappear with everything." "So what do we do?" A pause from Blake. "We need leverage, something to make them think twice about running." The next day, I drove to our house, knowing Dana would be at work. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked the perimeter, snapping photos with my phone. The new shed Harold had helped build last summer, the expensive landscaping that appeared while I was on a 3-week haul to California. Improvements paid for with my money, likely installed by Harold, increasing the value of a house now solely in my name. I sent the photos to Blake with a short text. Documented. 2 days later, Dana's lawyer called Blake with a surprising offer. Dana would return 50% of the withdrawn funds in exchange for 50% ownership of the house. "They're testing us," Blake said when he called, "seeing if we'll settle for pennies on the dollar." "What do we say?" "Nothing yet. Let them sweat." Meanwhile, I made another move. I contacted HR at my trucking company, explained the situation, inquired about the disability insurance I'd paid into for 20 years. "You're eligible for 60% of your salary for up to 12 months, the representative explained. "Given your heart attack and the doctor's restrictions, you easily qualify." I filed the paperwork that day. Another income stream Dana didn't know about, one that wouldn't be part of the settlement discussions. The following week, Jeff drove me past our house again. I noticed something new, a for sale sign on Harold's lawn. "He's bailing," Jeff said. I nodded. "Call Megan." An hour later, Megan confirmed our suspicions. Harold had liquidated his accounts 2 days prior, withdrawing nearly $90,000 in cashier's checks. I called Blake immediately. "We need to act. Harold's selling his house. Dana might be planning to leave with him. Blake didn't hesitate. I'll file for an emergency restraining order first thing tomorrow, freezing all assets, preventing any property sales without court approval. The next morning, I woke to a text from Dana. We need to talk. Just you and me. No lawyers. I showed it. To Jeff. They're desperate, he said. I nodded. Good. I forwarded the text to Blake, who replied, Do not respond. Restraining order hearing at 2 p.m. At 1:30 p.m., I was walking into the courthouse when I spotted Dana and Harold in the parking lot, arguing. They didn't see me. I pulled out my phone and recorded them from a distance. 30 seconds of undeniable proof of their affair, the very thing they'd meticulously concealed from the court. Inside, Blake was waiting. I showed him the video. Perfect timing, he said. Judge Harmon's in a mood today. I straightened my tie. Then let's not keep him waiting. Judge Harmon's chambers were smaller than the courtroom. Just the judge, the two lawyers, Dana, and me. Harold wasn't allowed in, not a party to the divorce. The video of Dana and Harold played on the judge's computer screen. No sound, but their body language screamed volumes. Ms. Wells, Judge Harmon said when the video ended, his voice sharp. Could you explain why your client testified under oath that she had no romantic relationship with this neighbor when video evidence clearly indicates otherwise? Wells looked flustered. Your Honor, the nature of their relationship is irrelevant to the financial matters at hand. Irrelevant when considering potential financial fraud? I think not. The judge turned to Dana. Mrs. Doyle, are you planning to leave the state with Mr. Jensen? Dana's face paled. I don't... Let me rephrase, the judge continued. The court has evidence of significant monetary transfers between you and Mr. Jensen. Mr. Jensen selling his property, and your withdrawal of funds from joint accounts while your husband was incapacitated. This suggests a pattern of deception and intent to flee. He looked at both lawyers. I am immediately freezing all assets belonging to Dana Doyle and Harold Jensen. Neither is to leave the county without explicit court permission. Furthermore, he turned to me, given Mr. Doyle's medical condition and the evidence of financial exploitation during his incapacitation, I am granting temporary exclusive use of the marital home to Mr. Doyle. Dana made a small, choked sound. Your Honor, Wells began, but the judge raised a hand. Exploiting a medically vulnerable spouse is something this court takes very seriously, counsel. You're fortunate I'm not recommending criminal charges at this time. Blake gathered his papers, trying not to look too smug. As we left, Dana caught my eye. For the first time, I saw fear in her gaze, not of me, but of the consequences. 3 months after the hospital, I was back in our house, my house now. The divorce finalized quicker than anyone anticipated. Dana didn't put up a fight after the restraining order hearing. Harold had vanished, leaving her to face the music alone. In the end, the judge awarded me the house, my truck, and 80% of our savings. Dana got her car and the remaining 20%. The secret account was split 50-50, but only after she paid my legal fees out of her share. I never spoke to her directly again. Everything went through lawyers. Last I heard, she'd moved to Minneapolis. A fresh start, I suppose. I sold the house 6 months later. Too many ghosts. Bought a smaller place, closer to Jeff and Megan. Used some of the money to help Megan with law school. She's going to be one hell of a lawyer. I don't drive long haul anymore. The stress isn't good for my heart, the doctor said. Found a job as a dispatcher, home every night. It's quieter than the open road, but there's a certain peace in the stability. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry about what happened. No, not anymore. You can't control what others do, only how you react. Dana thought she took everything from me that day in the hospital. Instead, she forced me to fight for myself in ways I never had before. Last week I was unpacking old boxes and found our wedding album. Considered throwing it out, but didn't. Just put it back in the box. It's part of my story now. Not the end, just a chapter. A heart attack almost killed me. Betrayal almost broke me. But I'm still here, changed, maybe stronger, definitely. Some lessons come hard. Some people are lost for a damn good reason. And sometimes the life you rebuild is better than the one you lost.